How are you
Good
doing? I
I'm
try
good.
to be not. I don't know the right side, the left side. I try to be closer to you because you look so handsome, and I try to be. I need to lose a little bit of weight to make this. Okay, dear.
你好，文科。
你好吗？你好吗？你很好。
我很好，
Okay.
谢谢。
I just everybody knows tonight that we have the first show in this address waiting. The people try to get together tonight. We start with episode 1, English version, on the channel of Voice of Ant Army or Voice of Ant Amour. We'll see when we use that. Tonight's the topic we better use army because we're going to talk some little bit tougher questions about all this 爆料革命, all about the whistleblower expose, the movement. So tonight we will translate it as VOAA. And welcome everybody. I can see the names that you are long time followers, viewers of my Aunt's Army, not my Aunt's Army. I am a part of it, and I want to introduce you and welcome our handsome and brilliant Canadian. And I just want to do a little bit of 爆料, a little bit of expose. Is the 中国女婿 Mark, and welcome and come to our show as a first guest. And welcome. And now, Mark, could you please introduce yourself and how you know 爆料革命 and how you know that Mr. Miles goes that online shows and why you have such confidence to invest in the GTV and the platform for the new federal state of China, and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, 文科。Hi， 文科，你好，你能听我说话吗？
能听到，能听到。
听得见，听得到。
小朋友们能听到吗？声音好吗？
好 ，Thank you， 谢谢大家。Thank you for having me on this program. 文科 I've actually been following you for quite a while, and I've been following the movement for some time as well. So I'm really happy to be on the show today with you. And it's really important. I'm not usually somebody I don't have a YouTube channel and I don't have a video channel. So this is my first time, to be perfectly honest with you, coming out in a very public forum. But I really think this is very important. Let me introduce who I am first, because I think that's a little bit part of your question, right? Okay, so of course, I'm from Canada. So I was born with Chusheng, Toronto. And I studied in McGill, and I've studied in Ottawa in MBA and an education degree. So I have a broad background. I actually am in business and healthcare, so I know very well the impact of the coronavirus on healthcare, on Canadians, on people around the world. It is probably the most significant event of the last 100 years, easily. And this is something that has really changed how our society is going to operate for the future. So it's so important. 我在北京，我在中国待了4年。I was 4 years in Beijing 20 years ago in 1990s. So, and before I went, there was really no internet at all, very little internet. And here we are 20 years later and everything, or 30 years later, actually. I didn't know anything about China before I went. 我什么都不知道. And now I know so much, and I spent 4 years there. I studied a little bit of Chinese at a school called 经济学院 in Beijing. In those days, they used to line the streets of baicai, white cabbage, along the streets. That was more of a romantic time, I think, but today is a very different time than it was 30 years ago. So I spent quite a few years in Beijing and other parts of China. And as you know, I also have a Chinese wife. We've been married well over 20 years, 26 to be exact. It's a long time. It's a good partnership, right? East and West. And we share the values of the best of both, I think. the best of the East and the best of the West. And so that's a successful story. And then we moved back to Canada. So I worked in the public sector, in the federal government, in the municipal government. Now I lead a healthcare operation. And as I said, I know very well how coronavirus has impacted the health of Canadians, but also the psychology of Canadians, not just Canadians, but everybody. And it's a very different world, and I'm really hoping that we can talk about that a bit today as well. So do you want to know how I got involved?
How you get involved, how you know Miles Guo is our hero, and how you are impressed, and how you have a little bit process. So you must have that curve, that shock and steady, and until that now you're fully convinced that the new movement of this whole thing will be changing China and changing the world, please.
Yeah, so actually it's really interesting because, you know, my wife, who most Chinese for a long time have been very apolitical. They're not political at all. They don't like to talk about politics. 30 years ago, nobody would talk about it at all. I think a lot of people are waking up. A lot of people are waking up to what's happening around the world. And she was one of them. So she actually was following way, way before I was. And I was probably not listening so much. I was paying more attention to what was going on in the United States with Donald Trump. And I used to watch, and I still do watch Stephen Bannon and The War Room.
The War Room, yes.
I'm very intrigued about what's going on in the United States and the battle between left and right and freedom and the ideas of individual freedom and the importance of collective liberty and collective responsibility. So I started watching Bannon and then listening to what was happening in the States. And then in January, as you know, coronavirus started to take shape. And then I started paying a bit more attention to, and that's, I think, when I got introduced to Miles Guo and started listening to him, and Stephen Bannon had many interviews with Miles Guo. And as you know, as soon as you get interested, you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And I have to tell you that my wife was actually a mile ahead of me on this topic, but we came to the same point from a different direction. She came by listening lots to the what was going on the Chinese channels, and I was listening to the English channels. We came to the same point. So when coronavirus came along, originally, we didn't really think very much that this was a Chinese-produced problem, right? You have to have an open mind. You can't just make an assumption about why things happen. You just have to respond. But then the evidence started to come out, and that was really disconcerting. And I know, especially in governments don't like to be transparent, especially the CCP does not like to be transparent, and they don't like to be embarrassed. So, in the first the conversations and the introduction of Li Mengyan, Dr. Li Wenliang, right? Dr.
Yeah, that's Li Mengyan.
Dr. Li Wenliang, the first doctor who,
okay, sorry.
Yeah, he 现在出事了.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I started to watch stories of people who were whistleblowers in China, lawyer and other people who started to report on the news and what was happening in Wuhan. And I thought that was very brave of these people. And they were all, we don't know actually what happened to many of these people. And I think that's a big problem. So this idea of the whistleblower movement was introduced to me sort of at that time, when these people were very brave to talk about the reality of what was going on versus what was being shown on TV. And we all know that what they show on TV is not reality. Sometimes even here, that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
So we were very concerned, and then I was introduced to the whistleblower movement, but also the Rule of Law Foundation, for which we donate, by the way. So I think that's a really important.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think Kyle Bass is or was involved in Rule of Law Foundation, and it's really difficult for people, even in Canada, if you're Chinese, you're Huaqiao, you're here studying. It's very difficult to voice your opinion, even amongst your friends, right?
Yes.
Because there's extreme judgment. People will judge you for your view, your politics. And it's people are afraid. That's why a lot of people wear masks.
Yes.
And I didn't want to wear a mask today. I wanted to show my face. I think I understand why people will not. Of course I do, because people are concerned and afraid. Even in my own family, when we talk about U.S. politics in North America, we're very divided. It can be very destructive to family. So I understand that, and people want to protect themselves. So the whistleblower movement and the people that were showing their face to do this, I think they're so brave. There was a video, I think a week ago, of a Chinese fellow who was waving the new flag in the shores of. Did you see that video?
Yes, in China, in front of the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
He was absolutely ready to die for that.
Yeah.
Just for that he could be disappeared, maybe already. So all the Chinese that when we're watching outside, we know that he knows it's the same as the person in Hong Kong. The last year, the person with the yellow jacket and jumped from the bridge. That's exactly was a choice to wake up Chinese, to see that we have to stand up for what we want our country to be.
That was a very profound moment for me to watch that. It's super brave, but also very hopeful.
Yes.
Did you not? It was a very hopeful thing to see a flag. It's almost the same as watching the flag planted on the moon.
Yes, it's a brave one.
Right.
As yourself, we call you the brave one.
Why shouldn't we have the freedom to express what we want to in our society, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what they've been trying to do in Hong Kong with originally, I think, the umbrella movement, but now I think everyone is seeing what's happening in Hong Kong.
Yes.
People should not be afraid to say what they feel or what they believe. And I know why I really am passionate about this. It's not really about justice. It's about freedom. It's about freedom of religion, association. It's about freedom of thought. It's about freedom from poverty as well. Because I know how many people I've spent, the 4 years in China. I know lots of people grow out of poverty, and many people have a lot of money now, or more money than before. But there's still very, very many who are working for very basic labor, and they're satisfying the Western world with products, and that's not right. Right.
Yes.
So that has to.
We still have about at least 70 million people and still live under the basic need. The food, the basic need for the daily life. They still struggle their life for it. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. So you want to mention a little bit about the Dr. Yan, the lady, who was working for the Lab 3 in Hong Kong, discovered the secret wasn't considered secret until that people forced her not talk about it, which is the front line, like Dr. Li Wenliang, that they, back then, just for the normal exchange for information, the lady kept all the WeChat information. And this, in the July the 10th, the Force News broadcasted, it's only 10 minutes, but the interview was done about 5 hours. So all the testimony, it's already since April the 25th, I believe, 24th, she succeeded with a very big, it's a Lude media to really follow all this escape like the Hollywood, worse and more than Hollywood. And how you feel that day when the Fox News broadcasted this 10 minutes of that and then she wants to say that she's risking. Her husband left her, put the pressure on her that she lost everybody in China. Now everybody under the pressure. That how you feel this will do to the world, to the U.S., to the world, to wake up the Canadian, to wake up us, to say, fellows, and come on, it's the truth behind more than just a pandemic. Go ahead and tell us.
I think actually 我等了很久，他出来说话。I think we knew that there was possibility she had come out sometime in April. And we waited, 2 months to hear her speak. She should be celebrated as a hero in China, actually. Why not? Her voice and her ideas and her communication with the other doctors in mainland China and at the lab in Hong Kong should be celebrated as a hero for bringing this forward, right?
Yes.
This is an early discovery of a problem, just like Dr. Li Wenliang. He should also be seen as a hero, and he sacrificed his life. So, but the government doesn't allow that because they want to hide the truth. And we know how quickly things change with coronavirus, right?
Yes.
In February, actually, I think I remember we were running our operation in early March, and then within 2-3 days decided we can't do it anymore. How quickly things change. So if we knew the information 5 days earlier, 10 days earlier, 20 days earlier, that saves hundreds of thousands of lives, many jobs, many people will not suffer as a result. So her coming forward is extremely important, and I think the government of CCP should be ashamed, and the people who were with her should be ashamed for not listening and not bringing it forward. The interview I thought was really good. Actually, I think they did a great job on that interview. Here's my comment, though. I really think that we need to have her voice beyond the channels that she's currently speaking in, right?
Yeah.
So I think many people now have an understanding of what has happened, but they also need to be seen on mainstream TV, mainstream media, not just certain kinds of media.
So my next question, Mark, excuse me, my next question is, why you think the word mainstream media hide about it, silent about it, and deliberately ignore it, and what could be behind, by your knowledge? For example, I tell you the truth, since the February the 2nd, actually since January the 19th, I start every day send the Trudeau an email every day about this pandemic. And at the same time, a copy to our Minister of the Santé, Dr. Lam, and to say that you need to really watch this careful to close the border, not to let the flights come in, because every day hundreds, thousands to fly in. That's why, in Quebec, how badly we do, because every day we still have 1,000 people landing from Beijing and Shanghai, not from Wuhan directly, but the people will take whatever to go to Beijing and Shanghai, come to here. So that's why, and I discovered, because I called my doctor right away. You are in the public service, the public health, that I called my doctor. I want a test. In the late January, I said, I want a test. You know what they say? Because there's no case in Quebec. What they say, we do not have a tester. So it's not about we didn't have cases. Is it because we didn't have the tester? We didn't have the tools to test until March the 16th and March the 10th it started. So that was really turned me to the anger that the Canadian government ignored the fact that it's not possible. It's the virus, and people keep pulling in. We're going to get it. So tell me, without disclose your jobs, whatever, not cause you trouble. Please give us some inside information. Why the government take that kind of approach? Why they take a WTO as the only information? Ignore the fact that the people coming in from the source of this virus. Go ahead, please. So,
Wenka, I'm not a politician and I don't work for politics. So mostly mostly these are my ideas and speculation on why this would be the case. I think it was in 2018 when Miles Guo was interviewed by Voice of America and they were cut off. Do you remember that?
Yes, 4/19. Yeah, April 19th. Yes.
Maybe that's a clue as to what's going on in the mainstream media as well, right?
Yes.
Now, the mainstream media, when you bring up these ideas, they don't talk about facts. They talk mostly about conspiracy. This is why I said it's really important to get the message out more in mainstream media. You have to win the hearts and minds of people, right? And right now, I think you have to do this through many ways, not just, I love the Bannon, and I love War Room, and I love Voice of America, but we have to go beyond that so people actually can hear the truth. I don't know why. I don't know why government. I think the World Health Organization is a big part of that problem.
Yes.
Because honestly, in early January, mid-January, they could have said, let's every country get prepared to test. This could be a big problem. But they were saying it wasn't a problem. Yeah. Even at the end of January, they were saying it wasn't a problem. But I think we knew it was a problem.
Yeah, I understand that we don't know why. But did you feel the same, like a wonder? Kind of angry, kind of wondering, because you are in the health as I do. The first feeling is this kind of thing. The transmission is in the air. The people coming. It's not something that you have a blood to transfer. You talk. You can. It's the subconscious that tells us, and the big problem could be arrive as a pandemic. Just as a professional in the health industry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well. A lot of people in this country, in my opinion, are asleep as well, Wenka, and they should be very angry about it. But they don't get angry in this country. In the United States, I think they are much better. They're much more aware, and they react very quickly to these things. We should be very angry about what happened. I can tell you how my life has been turned upside down as somebody who's involved in healthcare for the last 4 or 5 months. How our business has been impacted. In the area that I'm in, the patients who don't get treatment has a profound impact on their lives, on their future, right? So we should be angry, but it's very un-Canadian to get angry. And I think, so Wenka, you asked me in the beginning, why would I show my face on this program? Because I think it's time to wake up. I think it's time to listen and dig deeper below the news that you get. You have to investigate and get what you get from the media, but go deeper. You have to do research. And this is what I'm doing, and this is why I like the whistleblower movement, and this is why I like what you're doing. This is why I like蚂蚁军团, right?
蚂蚁军团,
yes.
蚂蚁军团.
And GTV and GTV News. I think these are really important ways to wake people up to see the real information, not the spin that we get on the news every day. I don't know why they're like that. Maybe it's corporate interest. Maybe it's profit-driven. Maybe it's a political agenda. Maybe I don't know the answer, to be honest. We have to hold them accountable, though, for what they report. I feel very strongly about that. Okay,
my next question. Did you see the War Room today? Did you watch the War Room today? Well, tell us, because now, my school is often the guest with Mr. Bannon together. Mr. Bannon is sitting in the boat, basically the two together all the time. You must be impressed as any Canadian or foreigner to see the my school, Mr. Miles Guo from 2017 until now. He can really talk in English. He can understand perfectly what's going on. And the topic recent that irritated us a little bit, especially affected him deeply, is the talk that the U.S., with all these politicians, all that talk on the sanctions on the 1992 million and Chinese, current Chinese Communist Party members. As you know, that Mao Guo leaded the big movement early on and strategically to set it, the difference between CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and China and Chinese. Now is the time that the U.S. and someone like yourself who have been living in China and work with the Chinese people to understand the difference between the CCP officials, the powerful people, the difference between them, and the ordinary Chinese, the Communist Party members, as we all do in the daycare and the elementary school, we have to be the Hong Xiaobing, we have to be the good kids. And could you please talk about that, how the word should make the difference between the members who has to have the job and the members, the leader members? They are controlling the people. They are the dictator of the totalitarian leaders to control the people. Go ahead, Mark, please.
Yeah. I think this is a really interesting question, Wenko. And it's not easy to answer because, of course, we know that people are work for the government because they have to make a living and they want a job and they want to contribute to their country and their society, right? How do you differentiate between the two? I think you start at the top, right? You start at the very, very top. And you look at the people who are corrupt and the people who have taken money and they've sent it outside of the country and they have 5 or 6 homes in different places around the world. You start there. That's where the message comes from. You don't punish the people who are just trying to make a living and contribute to their society. There's nothing wrong with being wanting to do that. And I support them. And I think that we should be very careful when we make a judgment on the Chinese that are here to study and to work and to learn and to contribute to our society, right? We have to be very careful. And I know Stephen Bannon is very, very clear about this as well.
Yes.
This is not about China. This is not about the Chinese people. This is about the politicians who are stealing from the people in China, their freedoms, their rights, their hope. So we have to be careful. I think those start at the very, very top, just like here, right? Just
Absolutely.
Like in North America.
So I think we have time now. We already got 30 minutes, so I have other 30 minutes. I would like to have 2 questions. If you know, Mark, you know always as my position very clear. If my question is it's hard to answer, or you're not ready to answer, could you please just say that could we talk next time? Do not feel embarrassed and do not feel like you have to answer. As the interviewer, I would like to ask you the question, which is my audience and created to send to me. And so, but please feel free if you are not comfortable to talk about it, and we can go for next question. So my next question is, for the side that we are Canadians, you are Canadians, what's your major concern with all this world movement about the CCP, the penetrated to the world, take the control of the market, take many control of buying stuff, where our traditional industry, our land, our house, in a way it look like for me, it's more about propaganda of help our health. In the last 15 years, we have been giving like $300,000 for the investment, which is buy a bonds and to have a passport on it. And I'm very political. I'm not a politician. I hate it. Just because that Trudeau is in my voting region. That I vote in this in the area that the Trudeau is voted. So I'm always thinking that how could I, as a great country, as greatest country for the peacekeeping, for the human rights, in the last 30 years I have been living here, that I couldn't tell you how much I'm disappointed the last 15 years that our politicians, our countries hardly stand up to fight, to show our great faith, to say that human rights is number one. We are the number one immigrant for the refugees and well known in the world. How come our country in the last 5 to 10 years now we don't talk about it? And look at Hong Kong. Look at what's going on with the Meng Wanzhou, with our 2 people, Canadians, are kept by the CCP in China, accusing them nonsense of whatever they want to accuse, refuse the family to go to see it. This make me wondering, and why is it like that? Could you please to give us a little bit to what you're thinking? And thank you.
Yeah, Wenko, this is one of the reasons I've become a little bit more vocal lately. I'm actually very upset with our government. You're right. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Canada was a very strong country on the international stage. We had a voice. We spoke about human rights. We were seen as a leader in the world. Something has happened in the last 15 to 20 years. You're absolutely right. And you know what? I want us to say something to anyone who's listening and anyone who's in Canada, and you do this a lot, I know, is to write your MP. The voice and writing your MP makes a difference. You have to let them know that you're not happy with the way things are. I think we've become scared. I think we're scared of, there was an article yesterday in the Globe and Mail about Canada between the United States and China, and they're stuck in between those two things. Well, that's a point of weakness. We don't need to be in a point of weakness. We have an amazing country. My kids just drove across the country from here to the West Coast. It's an amazing place with amazing natural resources. And we know that a lot of countries around the world want our resources. We have the power to stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable. But I think what's happened, Wenka, is that we've been waiting for China to change over the last 20 years, and they have not, right? We've been investing in education. We've also been accepting a lot of investment from China into Canada. And we are hoping for diplomacy to make a difference in in human rights, but it's not happening. I think you agree with me. It's not happening. We just have to look at Hong Kong.
We have to proceed. Well, excuse me. We have to proceed now to see that Canada is the 32nd province of CCP. Okay, and that is very insulting. As the greatest, basically, we are the least biased country in the history since World War II. We were always taking as a voice to be fair, and in the country to have a voice that not judging, take both sides of refugees. Every time when the two countries fight, have a conflict, we as Canadians, the taxpayers, we open our arms, accept both sides of refugees from the world. And we are also proud. The part of me as a Canadian, the most proud value in my heart is the shelter of the people in their own country, temporarily, maybe forever, lost their bed, their home, so they can come to our country in the arm of all our Canadian, the arms of taxpayers' money, so we give them a new hope. That's what we built up. We were built up as a country, everyone as an immigrants. But today, when I see this, and I don't see those value anymore, then I feel like I don't feel safe anymore after 30 years in this country. That's something really aching and eating me in a way that I can't keep my silence. That one of the reasons I want to do the English show, because of that, not only for the Chinese in mainland China, they need the whole world to give the compassion, give the understanding, give the chance. If you listen to the War Room, the lady Molly, that interview when Moscow was on tears, when Molly said, could you word please give a chance to the Chinese for once that has a chance to own the freedom, the democracy, because we showed by the Hong Kong people, by the Taiwanese, Chinese are capable to manage to establish a country as the rest of the civilized world. We could. Why not we couldn't? There's no evidence shows we couldn't. So there we go. Please continue on this topic of what you think, what we should do since the new federal state of China, as you know, on the June the 4th, announced by Mr. Miles Guo and Mr. Bannon that we established one of the interim government. We my school declared very clear that we just want to be in the future as the watchdog, as the guard, how this new Democrats country and freedom can be implemented. And we don't want to be my school and anyone else in the outside of the country has no interest to dominate, to take over, but to see how that please develop something on that thought, how you think, what we should do, and what the overseas Chinese we should prepare to let to communicate with the rest of the world, to do the most contribution that on us. Please, Mark.
Yeah. So you know, the how do you say 新中国联邦? I think this is the first time in history that I'm aware where there's a global movement. It's a political movement for people to come under one umbrella and one idea and the same ideas of which Miles Guo has introduced. You know, my daughter read the Spanish version of that.
Yes.
And
you
my
know,
and
女儿翻译的西班牙语的部分是我们的宣言的西班牙语部分，是她的女儿翻的。一家人都是我们的小蚂蚁。
Yeah, 我很骄傲，他给翻译的。
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think this is really important. Number one, I think it's a refuge for people to go to. That with the whistleblower movement is a place for people outside of China to develop a country outside of China, an ideal outside of China. I think this is an amazing opportunity for people to feel free, and it has to be. It cannot be Western driven. It cannot be driven by, you know, Stephen Bannon and people like me, and it has to be driven by the Huaqiao, the people who are overseas. And I hope, I know in Australia and in New Zealand, in Canada, the US and Japan, there are people all over the world now joining this idea. I think this is a very scary thing for the CCP, because if it was a Western people doing this, it would seem like a takeover of China, but that's not what this is about. This is about the Chinese taking back their country and taking back their ideals and their freedom. So this opportunity is an incredible one, and I support. Just like, you know, Canada, you said, as a home for people all over the world, whether from Syria or Haiti or Hong Kong or wherever. This is a place where they can come and feel safe and be who they want to be. That is also 新中国联邦 idea, and so I will do what I can to support it, like nourish it and feed it. But it's not just, you know, a movement for me, right? It's for hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
You are already, Mark. Today you come out and show your face and speak out for the Chinese and all the Chinese here and the rest of the Chinese, the worldwide 1.5 billion Chinese will see your face, appreciate the braveness and also your sincerity, your love towards the Chinese people. You know that you have a wife of Chinese, and you understand how this culture, that in that term, how much they involve with the emotion, that with everything what they choose to do, to see. So you are already giving your heart and supporting us. So and we really appreciate you come out today, really. And I know we will do lots of continue to have lots of topic to talk about it. And the next question, I think we have about 20 minutes, 19 minutes. I think all these people, they send no, keep your G dollar, keep your G dollar. That's our manager on the one of the manager on our Discord. To just show that he appreciates it. He's also Canadian. He's living in Canada. So next question, I think everybody's waiting, is tell us about your love story and also the horrible story. I'm sorry I didn't give you this question ahead of time. give us your love story and your horrible story when you worked in China, invest in China, how in China they were treated, that you have left the country. I know that's a part of a very aching, very sad. I know that I'm not trying to make that to be the sad part, but I know it's important that you let the Chinese people to know that even you were very badly treated by the CCP, you still have such a love towards the Chinese people. And tell us why. Tell us why is all that. And everybody wants to know your love story.
Maybe that should be for a second date, Wenko.
Give a brief one, or I will interview next time when we talk to the family how to love. We have a topic about learn how to love.
That's really important. Loving is really, you know, because you said the ant army, right, is amour. Amour in French is love. And love is actually the secret. What I see in the world is a lot of anger. Anger, and that's not the answer. We have to find what's common. And love is really the key part of moving us forward as people, as humanity. So yes, you know, in 1990, it was China was not very open at that point, and there were not a lot of foreigners in China in 1990, and I was one, and I was very young and very naive.
Very handsome. You're still handsome, but back then you were even more handsome.
I was doing a lot better 30 years ago than I am today. But you know, I made a decision. I did not want to get involved because I know how important family is and how important respect is for a young woman in China, especially in the 1990s. And to be involved with a foreigner was a very risky thing to do. So my wife is actually very brave. But I did not want to get involved, to be honest with you, because of that, unless I knew this was going to be a permanent thing. Why put somebody at risk if you're going to potentially hurt them for their future? I didn't want to do that. Now it's very different. I think it's much more open and you don't have these problems. But, you know, some of my biggest decisions in life, like coming on TV with you today, seem to be the easiest decisions, even though they have the biggest impact. You know, her family was actually very close with me. They treated me like family. And I think that's why I started to fall in love with the people and the country and the humanity and the openness. And so that was a big part of my falling in love with being there. And so, you know, we did fall in love, and 27 years later, we're still together.
And we got the kids is our Mai too. The kids are helping us to translate the Xuanyuan, everything. You know, and really thank you for both of you. Both of you, you have excellent children. And, you know, for Chinese, even to me, that's a dream. 27 years after, you're still loving each other so much, and you are supporting her on this issue. You know how many of us, you know, my family, that like it doesn't disturb me to doing that, but it's still not supporting me in a way to say that it's afraid that I will risk my life, all this kind of thing. I can tell that when I say tonight I'm going to do a broadcasting on English, all that, and he's telling me this morning to say, well, you know what, after you do English, you will be completely explored, completely naked as the real name. Like people were immediately, because I will have viewers that they are my lifetime friends, and in US, in France, in Canada. So this real me will come out. Today will be the end of Wenke in a way.
Okay.
So I understand, but how you come through this kind of fears, and you know, how when you do business in China, and when you have the maybe we will not talk about it today, but
Yeah.
I know you had a little bit difficulties when you left China, the business, all that. How that affect? I know the family loves you so much, and did you back then, 27 years ago, when that happens, how that give you the point of the waking you to say that China needs to change in terms of the regime, in terms of how this country are controlled by the top. There's no law. There's no fairness. There's no rule of laws. How that affects you back then?
I'm going to tell you a bit of a story, okay? I want to tell you a little bit about why I picked the name Ginkgo.
Yes, good.
It's
a really good story. Go ahead.
Well, it's really simple actually. So ginkgo is a tree, and the ginkgo leaf is in my view, one of the most beautiful, simple leaves. It's also native to Asia, and so my heart being over there is partially the reason why I picked ginkgo. But ginkgo is also one of the most ancient trees in existence. It's been around for hundreds of millions of years. And so it speaks to the durability of the tree. And also with the ginkgo, in the Hiroshima, when they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima, it was one of the only trees to survive. And that to me is very symbolic, both in my personal life and also in now what is a very public environment. The things that last have to have a strong foundation and a strong genes and strong roots. And I think what happened in the Cultural Revolution and through the entire 30 or 70 years of the Communist Party, where the history and of China has been ripped apart, has been hidden, has been taken away, the natural humanity of the Chinese people has been turned into I think a little bit of it's more about money, not about humanity. The Chinese party is more important than your mother, your father, your son, your daughter. There's nothing more important than your family, right? So how can we pledge allegiance to our government before our family? I didn't choose my government. I didn't choose them to be there. I chose my family, and that's what we need to support. So I think that's the key. I think that's the key, is going back into the roots and history of who China is, what China is, and to let it grow again like the ginkgo leaf and survive and flourish. And I think that's very much what I see Xinzhong Guolianbang, the purpose is. And it worked for me in my relationship too.
So I have a next question. Do you have a double citizenship? Do you? No.
No.
Now, you're just Canadian. So one day, if Xinzhong Guolianbang offer you a double citizenship, are you going to apply as our citizenship, Mr. Mark?
Maybe I can be an ambassador. What do you think? I'd like to be an ambassador.
I like it. Apply it. Apply the job. But I will really love it. But that ambassadors to live inside, as a Canadian ambassadors live inside of the new federal state of China. I welcome you. Go ahead. Okay.
Thank you.
And we do have another 10 minutes. I would like to everyone ignore the people. They try to say something because I forgot to set the management to all those people. Yeah, that's an interesting question. There's always some Wu Mao. You know what means Wu Mao? You know the Wu Mao? Wu Mao means the people that paid for 50 cents to come to yelling at, to write nonsense, to yelling at us through the dirty words on it. And it's paid by the Chinese overseas, that's the government or ambassador, the embassy, to just say, you see, that they start to say that I'm already very old. Why I dress up like a young kids, all this kind of stuff, like attacking people, and that is. But ignore those. We have 9 minutes. We ignore those things. So give me some questions, a couple questions. 小龙虾, all this the ants army. Ignore all these people. give me some question. What you would like to know more about Mark? What kind of questions you have? Take a look. I have a couple of questions from people. I won't ask personal questions. I won't do it.
Wenka, I wanna say one thing about what you just said. I want to say
ask a question. 快问问题 Mark 现在可以选你们的问题，宝贝们，赶快问问题。Ask questions.
Yeah, Wenka, I want to say one thing about what you just said.
Please.
So, when people criticize and when they try to bring other people down, these are not the people that are going to push us forward as a society. I think you should be very proud of what you have done. I think you should be proud to be who you want to be. That's the entire point of all of this, the freedom to be who you want to be. And I know that especially in Wenhua Dagamin and the families were torn apart. Even my own family, what I call my own family now, torn apart because of loyalty to one thing versus another. That's not acceptable anymore. And I think we need exactly what you said. We just need to ignore, listen to really good critique, but don't listen to name calling and pulling down. That takes us nowhere as a society. So I support you, and I support who you are and what you wear. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. I think you're great.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you. Let's just ignore anything that's negative, shall we?
Yes, absolutely. So the question is, one person asked, what do you think the Canadian Chinese should support the CAP? What the Canadian Chinese should do more? And the next, the 27th, we're going to have the World Movement at the parade, and we're going to protest in front of the Chinese embassy and to tell them their choice are not ours. And we are overseas Chinese. We have the freedom to speak out. How should we use our freedom and to be courageous and to do more things to make sure how we should move forward to make the world understand the importance to have the new federal state of China as a term to help the Chinese out the transition to grow to change the country to be the democracy and the freedom and have the voting rights, please.
Yeah. I think the first step, Wenka, is to start talking to people. Right? To have these conversations. And that's what you do every day, is you have a conversation.
Yes.
Right? That's what we're doing now. We're having, hopefully, some people will listen and we'll have a conversation. That's the number one thing, is to start talking, even in families, about your ideas. So the second thing, I know this event on the 27th, I really feel it's important to not just be in front of the consulate, but to be in front of a bigger audience. So that would be my goal, is to go big. What do they say? Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I would love to see that the image of the new flag and the hope of the people who participate visible to everybody in the city.
Yes.
Right. That's our goal. I think that would be a really great thing.
Yes.
And then we I said before, right to be active. Talk to your politician about it. Talk to your MP.
Yes.
Yeah.
I repeat a little bit. What we could do is the Chinese, overseas Chinese, we should write the emails, the letter to our prime ministers, to your local federal government and the local government representatives, to send them the information what about the new federal state of China, what's going on with the pandemic, and the Chinese, even though in the surface it looks like a very well developed in the last 20, 30 years, but they refuse to go to the direction the whole world has been hoping for it, which is towards democracy, the freedom of speech and the rule of law. Now they're going backwards. They're moving to more communist, more closing, more suppression people and more of abuse of the human rights. So we have to let the people know what's really going on, not only the people lined up for the Louis Vuitton bags. Okay, so the people knows that most of the Chinese are suffering because they cannot even speak the word about it. So talk to your neighbors and talk to your friend, send them the information without judgment, just let them know the fact. Okay, so that's what I would like to interpret it a little bit in a way if I did it right. So I give you the last 3-4 minutes to give a closer of Mark and what you would like and to suggest us as a Chinese individual what we should do in the daily life as an individual and to work on ourselves towards of all the prepare ourselves for the world to understand us. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so everyone every day needs to work on themselves, right?
Yes.
None of us are perfect, and we always need to grow. So the number one thing I think is to be informed. You need to read. There's a lot of people on social media yelling at each other, and to me that's not very helpful. So I say, don't react. Be a little bit more zen about life. Find the answers. Do your reading. Look at the facts. Don't have a political opinion just because you affiliate with somebody. I can dislike Trump, but like what he does, right? We need to have a broader, open mind to connect with other people. And that's actually, unfortunately, what people are not allowed to do. You know, I heard in Hong Kong, they started to take away books in the universities. And when you take away information, you take away freedom and you take away your growth and development. So that's my message, I think, today, Wenke, is to be educated, educate yourself and talk to others, learn their views, listen to them. Listening, one of the successes in my relationship is I learned when to listen, right?
With the Chinese, tough Chinese wife, I guess there's no choice.
Sometimes I don't have a choice. You're absolutely right. But sometimes I know when to be quiet and sometimes I know when to speak. And sometimes we just need to sit and listen and not react. And then we can bring people closer together to understand each other. Right? If we yell at each other, it's not going to get us anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have 1 minute left, 1 and 30 seconds. I would like to conclude that. First of all, we would like to thank Mark for today on our first VOA English channel. The episode 1, we're sure we'll continue to interview the people like Mark, and also second time and the third time we'll be on the show with Mark for sure. And then we want to thank you, all the audience and everybody, especially also thanks to the family members and our蚂蚁军团, the members of the lovely life and the 小蚂蚁 of Mark. And we want to thank the whole family stand still beside us as our families, as one of the person, the Mai, to be with us. And I want to thank you, all the audience today, for the first and a successful episode 1. And everybody have a great evening. And Mark, thank you so much for coming out, really. And on behalf of my family members, on behalf of 1.4 million people, they're still suffering under the pressure, under the non-freedom of nothing. And I would say that thank you, Mark, for loving us and to be with us. And thank you very much. I will talk to you soon again. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you and have a great evening. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. All the people that are behind, Loi and Babi Song, and all the translating people and the behind, Xinsheng, everybody, thank you for make all the effort. The whole day didn't sleep and practicing. Make sure all this broadcasting goes very well. Thank you very much with my heart. I love you guys.